Hello everyone, Untitled, welcome to another mod overview, this time on Item Decay, a mod that simply adds in the ability for your tools and armor to lose durability over time, and for blocks and items in your inventory to decay and disappear. And this will obviously happen at a given interval. You can obviously configure this if you want. Now, there is places that are safe for storing things. So you've got AE storage, or I assume certain other mods that do this sort of storage system. You've got Shulkerboxes that are in your inventory. You've got items dropped on the ground, and you've got crafting in the grid or the player's secondary hand or offhand. So yeah. Otherwise, there is a bunch of ingredients you can use to pretty much make certain blocks and items that are useful. You've got a stasis chest. So just like a chest, except it keeps your items and won't have them disappear from it. You've got a Hotbar Stabilizer, so each one in your inventory protects 3 of your hotbar slots. Having more than 3 in your inventory is unnecessary. Possibly impossible to get to work more than that because of how it's designed. And you've got an inventory stabilizer, which is obviously for your entire inventory compared to the hotbar one, obviously. So you'd probably want to go with this one over this one, unless you once you have access to enough resources, or if you prefer to do that instead. You don't really need the whole inventory to be protected, then you've got a hotbar option. Otherwise, there's the stasis field block, which protects every player, entity, and so on in an 11 by 11 radius, and you can also show it, and it's pretty much useful for other mod machines that can't afford to lose stuff in them. And there's obviously a bunch of configurable elements. So we'll see what happens when actually using these. So as you can see by default, it's just going to remove a bunch of stuff in my hand every so often. So I've had 6 of them there. Just wait a bit more, so 3, and if we move off of it, it's still in our inventory, it will actually still decay regardless. And you can see that the levers in my offhand are not being removed, and the Shulkerbox, which technically has nothing in it, also hasn't been removed. So yeah, there is that. So we've got our Stasis Alloy, which is just a snowball, iron ingot, and redstone. And then we've got our compact stasis alloy, which is snow blocks, redstone blocks, and the stasis alloys from before. And then we've got obviously our stasis field, inventory stabilizer, and hotbar stabilizer. And then the stasis chest is just the alloys. So we'll get many of these, which I assume won't disappear. Yes, they don't. Okay, so even though I don't have the hotbar or inventory stabilizer, they will actually sit in your inventory fine. So yeah, so just go with, I guess, what's in a Shulkerbox first, just to test. Because if it's in your inventory, then obviously that's something that you see. That doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, so I assume Shulkerboxes are safe even if they aren't in your inventory. Okay, so they are decaying over time. And even if I close the Shulkerbox, of course, I'm assuming things will disappear. Otherwise, if we, okay, so we've got a bunch of slots consideration. So if we put them in here, we'll be perfectly fine. We can hold them, no problem. Our diamond blocks are obviously the type of thing we're trying to avoid decay of. They're still going to keep disappearing. I don't have an AE system in here, so I can't really show that. Crafting grid, which obviously doesn't stay for long, so, but yeah, it'll stay in there, and then dropping them on the ground, of course, except obviously they have their own despawn time, so not the best. And then you've got obviously the hotbar stabilizer, so assume, okay, so you've got particular rows that highlight that will prevent them from obviously decaying. So the hotbar is obviously like so, and the inventory is that. So yeah, and if we actually get multiple, which I know we possibly can't, let's see, item decay. We can stack them though, actually. So you can actually get a lot more out of these. So you can have your whole inventory covered if you want, but typically you can go with one, but let's see, does it stack any higher? You can stack to 64. Okay, I wasn't sure if it would be like a single item, like a totem or a tool or something, but it seems you can actually do that. But 3 is your maximum, of course, because that's as far as you need, and other than that, of course, you know, it's pretty much the possibilities of coverage is what you can see with the red or whichever color. There. Now we've got our stasis chest, just put here, which does light up the area too, which is nice. And we can just put our diamond blocks in. I don't think we need those in there, obviously, because it's not going to matter. Actually, we'll test with a Shulkerbox if we can actually do that. So, we'll do this. No, not Hotbar. Actually, try that and see what happens. And these items can't decay either, so we'll see if that prevents them from decaying in there. Which, no, okay, so it doesn't. So it only applies to a player's inventory, not a inventory like a Shulkerbox. And obviously a regular chest won't work, otherwise that wouldn't really make any sense for the stasis chest to be there, obviously. We just put those in there. That won't change anything, I assume. We can't like surround them or anything, so include which ones we want to not decay or anything, because that's not obviously how it works. Oops, that's not going to change anything either. But if I put them in here, of course, no problem. So I don't really need those inside here, I think, because it will just do its thing. And then we've still got our stasis field, which we can just place here, which also illuminates, and I think just the illumination gives you an idea of how far it actually goes, I assume? Unless I'm wrong about that. We'll take a look. I'm placing it over here. I would assume there's no keybinding or any other thing I need to do to interact. Configurable. Oh, okay, so it's right click to hide and show. Don't need to use those to trigger it. Odd. Okay. Weird. So maybe you just have to go with the light, I guess, or whatever you've got set for configs. Alright then. Otherwise, the only thing I haven't covered is obviously tools and armor. Which if I just say get a diamond set, for example, and because I don't have the item or hotbar stabilizers, they'll decay over time, and pretty quick, surprisingly enough. So, if you're not careful, then that'll happen. And we have this in our hand as well. That just hasn't updated, I guess. So do this with sword and see, unless it's because these are a higher priority that's doing it and ignoring the rest, possibly. But yeah, these will decay very quickly if you're not careful. We do the sword. But before, it's because I'm in the stasis field, I guess. Even the armor technically shouldn't. There we go, now it's decaying. So armor still decays when you're in this field, but anything that's in your item slot doesn't. Or hotbar slot, or inventory and such. If we do this, that's not going to either. Interesting, so armor still does. Know anything your hotbar is. Okay, so if we do this, what happens? Nothing? So these are saved, that's it. Interesting, so it goes off the hotbar logic. Nope, just the one item then. Okay. Interesting. So it's kind of effective, kind of not, but it's probably configured that way, we'll see. But yeah, the armor's still going, and the axe is not, so... And obviously things in your second hand and crafting grid aren't going to matter either, so... Yeah, but if you want a bit of a challenge, then you've got that as an option. You have to rely on dropping things or using menu offhand, or just going about however. Now, obviously it is useful for getting rid of things like cobble and a bunch of other junk that you don't really need in your inventory when mining, for example, but when it comes to building, it'll obviously be quite difficult, and yeah, in terms of like making stuff, you'd have to be very quick when using your resources to actually make the stasis alloys and such, which I think can still stay in your inventory and not be destroyed. I'd assume they don't decay because they're part of the mod, but everything else does. Everything vanilla does, at least. I'm trying to think of another mod that I have installed. We've got plants, I guess. We'll see. Yep, so those act like typical vanilla sort of stuff. So let's see, if we go with like powder makers. So I'm assuming other modded blocks and items. Okay, so they are affected still, unless it's just because they act like other certain types of blocks, which is possible. Or it just goes a wide range and just goes because you're a block or item rather than just you're a furnace-like or something like that. Then yeah, that's my guess. But anything from the mod itself, the item decay mod, won't decay. It'll disappear over time. So these are your safe ones that you can keep on you and be sure that it's not going to be used up. Otherwise, we'll get to the configs, of course. Let's see, item decay, which allows you to pretty much change items to ignore, or entities to ignore, which is the stasis chest, so technically you could change that. And with items to ignore, the ones that are from a mod obviously don't, but if you did want it to be more difficult, then you could. By default, anything from the mod is ignored from decaying, but you can change that to be even more difficult. Otherwise, you can change the inventory removal rate, which is 3 items per interval. You've got the storage removal rate, which is 1 per interval. Almost broken tools are saved, so assuming that would be where if you are still fine with them decaying, but it will basically allow you to still keep your tools, which by default it pretty much just breaks them as much as possible, I assume. I don't know what the actual cutoff point is of durability, but my guess is maybe like 1 or so, about as low as possible, but then from there you just keep repairing as much as possible, or just put it away if you're unable to. You've got the armor damage per second, which is obviously quite quick, so you can reduce or increase that as much as possible. Actually, 1 might be the lowest, I think. I don't know if you can use like a -1 or a 0 or something to prevent it even, and just say enable other stuff, or have the others set accordingly to higher values of it taking longer, for example. You've got the removal interval, which is 300 ticks, I'm pretty sure. You've got the stasis field range, which is 5, so that's supposed to be 11? My guess is maybe that's supposedly 5 blocks, rather than the 11 by 11 maybe, unless it's 5 equivalent to, let's see, particles may look weird at certain ranges. Okay, so that's maybe just the range that it will present to you, like if it actually did show the boundary. Actually, I might have had particles off. That's why I didn't see it before. We'll actually test that now, since I know that. There we go. So, yeah, so that actually makes a lot more sense. So that's why. Yeah. So that's how far that is. Whoops. And you've got the tool damage per second, which is the equivalent of 1, which is about as quick as the armor one. So, yeah, if you want to change a few elements of what can or can't, because say you don't want tools to, or you don't want building materials or valuable things like diamonds to be removed, then you can change that, and everything else for the rate of durability per second, or the actual time it removes each one, or this, that, and the other. You can configure however you want. And obviously make sure you have particles on, or otherwise you won't be able to see things like this boundary here. So, yeah. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and goodbye.